Welcome back to Clerical Chefs. We thank you for your support for our other programs, and so your encouragement motivated us to make another episode for you as an Easter gift. So, happy Easter. We're here cooking to amuse you, and Father Matt is busy working on the liturgies, so you see how that works. We're very happy you're with us today. What we'll be cooking is Genoese sauce, an Italian topping for pasta, for polenta, for rice. You may be familiar with bolognese, and this is similar. It's a meat sauce. But before we begin, you see that we have our tablescape, and this is an Easter lily, as you know, and also a symbol of Saint Joseph, which represents him, as you saw in the Easter letter that you all received. Now, the lilies have within them stamens. They're the little seedlings that come out. And what's important to do when you get a lily, and we have to do it in church for dozens of them, is you need to trim out the little stamens. When you do this, it makes the flower last longer. So let me just show you how to do that. So you would take a moment to wet a little piece of paper towel, and you never want to touch this with your hands because it's an orange dye that you're never going to get out. So you take your scissor, you cut in here, and then you use your wet paper towel to gently pull out that, and then it's discarded. And when you do that for your blossoms, of course for you at home, you won't have as many as we do in church, but it does help very much. If you need to be orange for any reason, you can certainly touch that and you will be orange for a long time. So I just thought that was a little extra. I saw the lily, and it's a little tip you may not know. So let's speak about Genoese sauce. Well, it comes from Genoa, which is a city in northern Italy. To the upper left, if you were looking at the boot, you might say the rim of the boot. My father's people came from that area in the mountains a little north of Genoa. So this recipe comes from them, and I'd like to share it with you. And it's also an opportunity for the younger people in my own family to learn part of our tradition and to have it as part of their permanent record. And hopefully one day I can retire and they can cook it themselves. So we're happy about that. So what will you need? Well, you'll be having a list of ingredients on the side of the screen, which will be helpful. But let's take this bit by bit. So the first thing that would be helpful to do is to know that from that area in northern Italy, mushrooms grow. And they're often used as part of the ingredients in cooking. The mushroom that grows there is called porcini mushroom, and I have a little box of it here, and they're quite ugly, really. You can see it here. It's a dried mushroom, and it's quite strong smelling here. Yeah, it's earthy, it's rich, and you put it into your sauce, it brings a great depth to it. But what's important, it has to be broken into little pieces and also rehydrated. So we have here, Father Nico will demonstrate breaking the little porcini mushrooms into small pieces.
This?
Right in here. Oh yeah, okay. So that's not hard at all. Now he's done some already, so we'll put them right in here. And while I'm talking, you can finish this one, okay? So there you go. So you take a pot, and this is how you rehydrate them. And in the pot, you put some wine. Now it's good to cook with a dry red wine, such as Chianti, Italian brand, or whatever you have. but not really white, okay? So even if you don't like red wine to drink, you can cook with it and the taste is different. You'll be using this entire bottle that goes into the recipe, so buy a bottle. And if you like to wine as you cook, then you're gonna need 2 bottles, one to drink and one to cook with. So be prepared. Don't cheat your Genoese sauce for your own happiness. There's a higher stake here, okay? So you just take a little wine and just cover the bottom of the little pot, and then you put it on your stove and you boil it. And when the wine boils, it takes out the alcohol, and that's very important, okay? So if you don't want to use wine at all, if you have any reason why that would not be appealing to you, you could use beef stock or a mushroom stock, okay? So something like that if you're not wine, but wine's pretty good. But if you have an issue with it, then just use the beef stock. I would not use water because you want to keep getting a depth and depth and depth of flavor. So once it starts to boil, you drop in the mushrooms, and then you shut off the heat and you just let them stay there. I believe the word is steeping. They just stay there. Do it at the beginning of your process. You're going to put them in 20 minutes or so, and by then they'll be nice and plump and ready to go. Okay, so you'll just take that off the heat and you'll put it aside, and then we'll have that. Okay, so thank you. Now today we're also going to use some thyme. And thyme is, of course, a spice. You can have dry thyme, or you can get fresh thyme, which is and Father Nico will demonstrate how to do it. And how you do it is you hold it by its little top, and you just strip down the leaves, and little thymes fall off, okay? At the top, of course, you'll have like 2, and you just pinch them off with your finger. And you do this over and over again, so here you are. So it takes a little time, but it's fun. Thank you. And what you'll end up with is something like this. And again, depending on your taste, thyme is a very, again, like the mushroom, it has a very rich, earthy taste. You smell it? Good. Okay, so there you go. So there's another little way you can do that. Today we'll be using salt. We talked about that before. So if you put it in something like this, you're able to dip your finger in and get what you want instead of trying to pour it out of a container. I told you before, the hot paprika, I'm using it instead of pepper now. I like the complexity. You can certainly use pepper. Now today, we're also going to cut up an onion. And if you put your onion in the refrigerator, which I know some people are very much against, but if you put it in the refrigerator before you are going to cut it, it takes away that burning of the eyes sensation, because the whatever sulfur chemical that's in there that makes you cry is not there. Father Nico said that he's doing enough crying because of his assignment here. He does not need an onion experience, so I put it in the refrigerator for him. So what a good way to cut the onion is to cut off one end. So once you cut off an end there, and remember, after the end is cut, you'll be saving it to make a nice aromatic smell in your home. Please see episode 2 or 1. So once you've done that, you also can really basically cut it in half, okay? Great. And at this point, you can peel the outer layer off, because it does come off now. So there you go. Do you want to do it simultaneously? Mm-hmm. And you end up with this. But if you notice, I left the little nub. Remember what we had cut off with the radicchio and the endive? Well, don't do that now. Keep it there, okay? So you'll lay it down. Here you go. And you'll be saving this. Okay, good, great. So here we have a half of an onion, but the end is intact, one end, okay? So you lay it down like this, and with the nub facing away from you, and then you slice down don't go all the way to the nub. Leave the nub there. See how I put my hand here so I don't cut myself? Now get as close as you can to each one, because what we want to do is dice this. We don't want chunks of onion. We want it to flavor it but be disappeared, okay? So now that you've gone this way, then you turn your onion and you go down like this, and you end up with all these nice little pieces. See, they look whole, but they break apart because they've been cut in 4 different directions. All right, so I'm just going to finish this, or you can do it that way too, but you get the smallest pieces that way. Okay, so I'll move these aside, and we'll have Father Nico try it. Nub away, and there you go.
So don't go all the way, right?
Right, go as far to the end as you can, right.
And then
Turn it, right? And here, remember you learned the rocking motion? You could try that.
right.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, you're ready to begin. Now let me tell you about what kind of utensils you need. Can you see the pot? Yeah. So this is a Dutch oven. It has a very substantial lid. Would you grab the lid? This is really the best thing to have, or some kind of heavy pot. The pot itself is probably 5 pounds, and it has this big lid on it. So the advantage of having something like this to cook with is that things don't burn in it. Okay, so it's a nice heavy pot. If you don't have one of these, you can do this recipe in a crock pot. However, you might have to reduce the amount of ingredients, and not the ingredients, but the volume of them, because crock pots may not hold as much as this. I'm basing my recipe on filling this pot up, okay? This crock pot, this Dutch oven is really what it is. And then you could also do this with a regular pot, of course, as long as it was oven proof. But if you do, when you go to put it in the oven, cover it with aluminum foil or aluminium foil with the lid on it so that nothing escapes, okay? So a crock pot holds in the steam, this holds in the steam. Regular pots don't, so you gotta put some aluminum foil on them because you don't want all that moisture to escape. All right, so here we have a little olive oil, which is going to begin the cooking. Now, there's only a dribble in here, so maybe we would say, this is a tablespoon. Last time those tablespoons were huge. So, I think 3 ought to do it. Yeah, that's what I eyeballed it as. Okay, so that doesn't seem like very much, but everything that you're cooking is going to give off a lot of moisture, and so it's going to be just fine. All right, so we have put a little oil in there. We'll put the onions in, and of course it's probably good to heat up the oil a little bit before, but frankly with onions it's better if it happens at the same time. You don't want to burn them, you just want them to become clear, and just cook them a little bit, not too much. So I'd say maybe like 8 minutes. Now with the onions, and with every layer of this cooking, it's important to season each time you go back to your pot. So with the onions, which I haven't cooked yet, you take a little salt, like a little pinch of it. You take a little thyme, maybe a little more. And you take some of your pepper or the little hot paprika. You stir it in, and then we're going to put it on the stove, and as I said, cook it for maybe 8 minutes, but you really have to stand there and look at it. This is not a science, this is the eye. Keep your flame low, take your time. The whole thing should take you about 40 minutes to assemble. All right, it's going to take longer for us because I'm explaining everything, but for you, that's all it should take. It's going to cook for 2.5 hours, but your actual time spent working on it is not long. All right, so we'll put this on the stove, and we'll be right back. Another ingredient will be garlic. Now this is a garlic bulb, and I'll show you what a clove is. I did not know the difference. You can hear the onions are cooking there, so I would lower the flame. I didn't, well, let's put it this way. When I was in the seminary, one of my professors, who ended up to be our bishop, Bishop Serratelli, used to have dinners for seminarians, and one time it was my turn to cook for them, and he liked spaghetti aglio olio, which is with garlic and oil. And I did not know how to make it. I telephoned his mother, and she said, well, for every cup of oil, or half cup, I forget what, one way or the other, you put a clove of garlic. So I said, okay. So there was about 15 people at the dinner, and I did exactly what she said. We had it. Everybody said it was very good. The next morning we woke up, which happened to be a Sunday, and I thought something died in my room. Well, it wasn't that. The garlic, we reeked of it. We're going on the communion line, people are moving away. He went, of course, to his parish, and everybody was making a big circle around him to get out of there. And we all thought, what happened? And it certainly went down well. And we had no trouble with vampires. That was the best part of it. But what it was a disaster. So I called his mother. I said, what happened? She said, I don't know. I said, I only used, I think it was 6 cups of whatever the oil was. So I only used 6 bulbs. And she said, no, it was cloves. The clove is the little piece inside the bulb. I had used 6 whole bulbs instead of 6 cloves. It tasted good, but sometimes if the wind blows the right way, it's still with us. So please know the difference between a clove and a bulb, which probably has 20 or 30 cloves in it. So let's just look and see how we're going to do so you pull off one of these little cloves, and you take your knife and you put it down and you just smash it, which is satisfying, right? You could be blessing a clown at this time and praying that transform me and set me free. Okay, so you do that, and then you do a little rocking motion, and then turn and do it again. Okay, so that's how you mince a garlic clove. So we're going to use 2. So we're going to get a better sized one out for Father Nico to do. And here you go. So did you just see that? So crush it.
So what's my prayer?
Yeah, I guess you
Bless Father.
Yeah, exactly.
Set me free. And then
a little too much enthusiasm on his part, don't you think?
And then
yeah, and if you put the knife a little further up, that's right. See, it's going to rock better now. You see the difference?
Yep, yes.
Okay. Good. And then just turn the whole little pile or the board, and then do it again. Good, good, good. So the onion should be pretty much started. I'm going to take a look at it in a minute, but then we're going to put in the garlic on the top. These are the 2 cloves of garlic that we minced, and you can see the onion. I just threw it in there. You do the garlic later and leave them on top of the onions, because if the garlic burns, it's very bitter. You don't want that. So let it just cook a little bit on top. See how the onions are almost done. You can see that. Now, all of a sudden, we can smell the garlic. The onions are pretty soft, and we're good to go. All right? So they just need another minute or 2. And remember, the flame is low, so that's a good thing. All right? Now, if you have to go do something else, you could just shut it off and then handle it that way. All right? All right. Now, you'd like to have a nice big bowl like this, because as you continue to cook the different ingredients, once they're cooked, you put them in your big bowl, and then you add the others, and then you add the others, and eventually we'll get to adding the tomatoes, and then we put everything back, right? So we're going to do one at a time. So Father Nico's going to bring over the pot for us. And I will do this. A little more over. So let me just say that this is heavy. It's nice if you have help. If you don't, then you have to do it with one hand, and it's okay. It's just a little more difficult, okay? So that's it. Now, you don't have to do anything with this. Just put it back on the stove and we'll get next to the rack. And this you just put to the side and let it cool off, okay? Good. Now, let's talk meat. Okay, well, let's do this first. So the ingredients, this is here because I don't want to forget it. The ingredients that you have, and you'll get the measurements on the side of the screen. We're going to have, of course, chopped meat. This is about 1 pound chopped meat. We have 1 pound of chuck, cubed. I think these cubes are too small. I couldn't get anything else. I like to get the chuck meat that I can cut myself, and we'll show you what size. See, at the end, the meat gives all the flavor to the sauce, but it's nice to be able to pull out the chunks of meat and put it on a separate plate, and that could be added to your dish. Or you could cut them small like this is going to be, because we have no choice, and then they're in every spoonful of the sauce already. That's up to you. But the meat on the side is really nicer, but we'll have it inside and it's going to be okay. Cooking's like this. Just go with it. You're in your own kitchen. Do what you want. All right? Now we have pork. Again, now see, I like that because you get the cheap cut. You get chuck or something for stew. It has fat. It takes a long time to cook. That's what you want. Don't put your filet mignon in there. You get the pork, the butt, the shoulder, any of the cheap cuts, and then you can cut it to your right size, which we'll do last because it's pork and you don't want to mess up your cutting board. And then this is also sausage, which is pork. So I touched 2 porks, but it's okay. And we have that. So you have 1 pound of cheap pork, 1 pound of the meat, 1 pound of the chopped meat, and you get 1 pound or so of the sweet Italian sausage. Unless you like the hot one, then that's up to you, but I like the sweet one. All right? So we're going to do the worst job first so that you don't dread it. So what is the worst job? The worst job is to get the sausage meat out of the sausage. Now, sometimes you can buy it already out of its casing, and many times you can't. So if you can't, you have to go squeezing it. So this is how this works. I mean, it can be fun if you, I guess if you make it fun. So you see how it is? If you take your hand and you pinch it, you end up getting out a little ball like this, and then you put it down. So you pinch, you squeeze, you pull it out. You pinch, you squeeze, you pull it out. Okay? It's restful, like knitting. Not that I know, but I just try. I don't like to do this, but you know, there's people that would enjoy it very much. It's truly hands-on cooking. All right, so we're almost done. Now it started to come out the other end, so hey, it happens. There you go. And you're left with the little skin. You'll be tempted to cheat and just make a big bunch of it, but try to break it up into little pieces. It'll help you later. All right, so there we go. I'm done, and now it's up to you. Doing something like this is an experience you'll never forget. It's different, isn't it?
All right.
Good, and you end up with something like this, all these little, like tiny little sausage balls, and we'll be cooking them first in the same pot. Now, there's probably enough oil left from the onions. If not, just put a drizzle left. This sausage will give off its own liquid, so it's okay. So we're going to go to the stove now and see how we put them in and how we have to keep moving them and cutting them. Okay, so as you can see, what I'm doing is dropping the little sausages in to the pot, and you can hear them sizzling already. Let them stay there a little bit. This pre-browning business is a very important component to it all. So what you want to start to do now is get something like this tool something like that, and then you start moving them around. All right? And as they cook faster, you would, see this is sharp. You can, as they get a little harder, you can break them in pieces because you like them small, all right? And that's what you do. Until they're a little crispy, don't kill them, but they should have a browned end, and they can have a little pink left because they're going to cook inside. But what you want to do is get a little bit of a crust on at least half of them, and that will help add some flavor. Eventually it will darken the pot, and all that's stuck on the bottom is actually a great flavor. So we'll look at that later. So we'll be cooking this now. This is the end product, and I'll show you, hold on. You can see the browned edges, that's important. All right, that's it. Now we're going to take it again and dump it in that bowl. Okay, so once again, we're going to put it in our big bowl, layer number 2. And that's it. Now there is a little liquid in this. You want to dump out the liquid because the next time we go into it, we don't want whatever we're cooking to steam. We want it to actually brown. Next step is the ground beef cubes. You put them in. I'm doing it here, but of course you do it right over the fire. You drop them in. You do the same thing you did with the sausage. You let them sit there for a while, getting a brown side, a little crust to them, and then move them around. They'll stick. There'll be brown bits at the bottom of the pot. That's great. So the beef cubes are cooking there, hopefully sticking to the bottom and making some very nice little crust there. And after they get stuck, move them around a bit. But here's the pork. If you would like to have a nice big cube of it, then cut that. You'd pull it out and serve it on the side. Or if you just want it to be part of the sauce, then you cut it into small ones. But I think today we'll make some big ones. So Father Nico will cut a good size like this, which is big enough to identify and pull out, okay? Now, here's the thing. This cooking board is now messed up because it's had pork on it. So cut the pork at the end, and then of course you have to wash the board, but you can't cook pork or sausage or anything like that and then put something else on it. So I'm going to cut up some basil later, and I'm going to use a different board. Now at every stage, except for the sausage meat, you want to add a little salt and a little of your pepper and a little of the thyme to each layer. The sausage needed nothing because it has its own flavor, but that meat needs it, and so does the ground beef, and so does the pork. So you want to cut some nice pork pieces. Now after this, we're going to wash our hands and change boards or vigorously wash this board with hot water and soap.
That's good.
Yeah, great. So you get the idea. Okay? Okay, so what have we done so far? We've browned all of our different meats. Everything's ready. They're all in the big bowl, ready to be put into the pot. One thing we didn't have was the basil, so we'll do that. Remember, you roll it in a little ball and you just rock your knife and we'll turn it a little bit and do it. So that's ready to go. All right. Now, let's talk about that pot. You remember how dark the bottom was? It looked burnt, it looked very bad. What we're going to do is take the remainder of this bottle of wine and put it in there. There's 2 stages to the de-glazing, and we'll take it bit by bit, so don't worry about it, all right? So we have our basil. Now let's talk about the tomatoes, because it is a tomato sauce. So we have, these are about 28 ounces. We have different types, and I want Father Nico to taste them so that you'll know that they're, well, let's find out what he finds out, okay? So this is good for you. So try this.
Which one is this?
Doesn't matter what it is, just try it, yeah. Okay. So there's that. Try that. No, here. It's called cross-contamination. Different spoon, different mouth. Okay. Ooh. Open the barn. Ah.
Oh, this is good. This is
That's
tasty.
different. Okay, so what's just happened? One, I made a fool of myself. Two, he's a good sport. You learned something. Well, the first thing he tasted was crushed tomatoes. They're just crushed tomatoes. The second can was puree, which means they're more than crushed, they're pureed. That's a lot to say. And this is...
But they basically taste the same, this too.
Okay. And did you notice a difference in texture?
Well, this one has some chunks.
Okay, good. And then we have this is tomato sauce. Now, this will vary in taste from brand to brand, as do all tomatoes. But I found this a few years ago, gives a little and I like that, and that's good. Now here's what I consider to be my secret is tomato paste. Tomato paste, well, we'll see what he thinks first. That's the most important. Here you are. You like that?
This is good.
Yeah, this is good. You could really eat it out of the can with a spoon if it's your, right?
On a
Don't
bread.
you think so? Good, you'll have this week then. Okay.
All week?
It's very economical. Yeah.
All week?
Just a small can in your room with a little piece of bread. But this is really good stuff. And you can use it if you make a cheese sandwich. It's nice on toast. Beautiful. A bruschetta, whatever you want to do with it. Any little tomato paste, if you throw it in any soup, not a whole can like this, but even a good sized spoon, it brings a richness and a complexity that's very pleasing. And it's condensed, like condensed milk. You know how sweet and good it is? This is like the essence of a tomato. So I use a lot of it, and we'll see if you like it. And that's it. So there you go. So these are the types I use. This is the size cans. You'll get the measurements. We're going to do that. Now we're going to move back to the stove and show how to... Tomato paste is very thick. Let me demonstrate.
This is clean.
This is clean? Okay. You see how that's standing up? That's thick. I'm thick. This is thicker. All right, let's move to the stove. What I've done is I'm adding some wine to the bottom of the pot. This is called de-glazing, and I'm getting my spatula. Remember all those black bits I told you about that you were worried about? They're all going to come up now because of the acid in the wine is cutting through that substance. And this will also cook down a little bit. Now, the tomato paste is very thick, spoon, and you don't want it lumped in, so we scraped off the bottom, and now I'm going to put the tomato paste into this hot liquid, which is good because it will, I'll show you in a second, it'll help melt it, and it'll come together with the wine, and that's a good thing, okay? Okay, and then you just kind of incorporate it. It melts. It just takes some time. Be patient with yourself. If you don't do this, you have floating tomato paste islands. Okay, so now I'm going to put the rest of the wine in, the whole bottle. There you go. And this is also a good time to put those mushrooms you made, remember them, in, that have been soaking now for quite a while. So there's that. It's very important that you keep this moving. There you go. Now, at sometime during this, when you began, you can preheat your oven to 325 and you'll be ready to put this in. You could do it on the stove top. However, it's much better in the oven if you have a Dutch oven. That's why they call it a Dutch oven. If you're using just a pot and you can't do it, then the only problem with having it on the stove top is a very low flame and you have to keep stirring it. If you do it in the oven, you only have to stir it every half hour or so, okay? So we have this, and now we're going to add our tomatoes. It doesn't matter in what capacity. Now, each of these cans will be rinsed out with a little water to try to get what's left in it out, okay? So there's that. And now the flame's too high because it's bubbling. You don't want that. And we'll put the rest of them in. There you go. Okay, rinse out with some water. And then this, just a little bit because you don't want to dilute it. And then one more, okay? Very good. All right, now we'll put the basil in. And we stir that up. Now, this has no salt. Did you say, why didn't he put any salt in? He's going to. A little of this. You cannot taste this now yet, so take your time and the rest of the time. All right? So how much was there? About 2 tablespoons. It seems like a lot, but this is a lot of liquid here. Now, as we're doing this, we are going to say a prayer that when we put the meat in, the pot doesn't overflow. All right? So let's try to do that. Let's see here. Okay, looks like we're going to make it. Okay. Now we'll sink them. Good, you just made it. Okay. This just takes a little bit to incorporate it. Now this is going to cook for 2.5 hours in the oven or on simmer. And if you cook it on the stove top, because you don't have an oven-proof container like this, you just have to keep stirring it and stir from the bottom. Keep pulling it up, turning it around. All right, so there you go. This is pretty thick. Remember, some of the meat we're going to be able to take out later, but it'll be good. All right, and now we're just going to put it in the oven, and we'll show you how it looks at the end. All right, there you go. See, we have our Easter motif beginning, and here we go. You'll notice in the oven that I took out one of the trays. Because the pot is so heavy, if you had another tray, you have to really get in to lift it. So just leave the bottom rung and you can get in more easily and get out. But you'd have to take the tray out before it's hot, before you turn on the oven. All right, so that's in there. Every half hour or so, give it a good stir from the bottom. Other than that, you're good to go. Let's talk pasta. So I have rigatoni. I enjoy them very much. There's all different sizes and shapes. For this particular sauce, I would use a formed pasta, some type of a shape, not spaghetti or linguine or angel hair. They need something that can hold the sauce to them. Rigatoni have little ridges. Now, I thought the clever way that we're going to do it today is we're having orecchiette. They look like little face masks, and I thought that would be appropriate for our time. But if I were doing this for my own pleasure and not yours, no, the sacrifice is well acknowledged. If I was doing it for myself, I like the medium shells because each shell has a little sauce in it. It makes a tiny boat, and it's lovely. But we're going to make these today just because we're in the middle of near the end of our health crisis, and who doesn't know about face masks today? Now you'll see that our water is boiling. And how much water is that? A lot. You can't have too much water, so don't worry about it. You just don't want to crowd your pasta. And then we have nice boiling water. We're going to put some salt in it. And now we'll put the box in. So you open the lid, and how the pasta goes in is the most important part of it. Watch this movement. Now it takes a few minutes for it to come back to boil. Move it with your spoon so it doesn't stick, and it will come back up. And then read the instruction for how long it is to cook. It's usually 10 minutes, but basically you have to taste it, which means take it out on your spoon, run it under some cold water. If it tastes good to you, it's done. People like it soft, people like it more stiff, they call it al dente. You take it the way you like it. And take into consideration, of course, your guests, because if you're cooking, you really should be thinking about them and not you. You can always take yours out of the water quicker or leave yours in a little longer, but you're going to know your customers one way or the other, and you know it's really for them. The pleasure of cooking is watching other people eat, I think. So we'll see you when this is done. Okay, I just tested them, ran in a little cold water. They were fine, they're perfect. So I'm going to shut off the heat, and we'll come over here and we dump them in a colander. Okay, and then we're going to put them right back in the pot in a second. So I take a little of the sauce, I put it in the bottom of the pot that I just cooked the pasta in without the water, and now I'm going to put this right in here. And this is how we'll mix it. Right in the pot. Then you take some of your grated cheese, which you've learned in the other show. And you can do it right into your pot. And you get the idea. And then you would continue to stir it up. Good. Now everything is perfectly incorporated. Maybe just a little bit more to taste. There you go. And then you'd be able to plate your dish, which I will do, and then show you the final product. Well, welcome back. We've assembled our little Easter tablescape for you. Before we get to the actual food, just in case this is the first time you're hosting an Easter, there's a few things that make it very special. First of all, to have candlelight. Secondly, we have our Easter bread in the shape of a cross, as you can see. We have flowers, the lily, of course, and the normal Easter things. Chocolate bunny, some chocolate eggs. Dark chocolate is excellent with red wine. If you're having dessert and you have some of the wine left, put the dark chocolate behind your teeth and suck in the, sip gently the, the red wine, and the combination is absolutely angelic. Also, we have the jelly beans here in multiples. My father liked the licorice ones. If he was here, God rest him, they would all be gone and we never would have seen one. What else do we have going on here? If you have any little baubles you like, put them out on your table. Why not? We have our Easter egg basket, the little bunny, and we have peeps, which are very important. You either like peeps or you don't. Not people. Well, that's true too. But these are peeps as in marshmallow peeps. The thing to do with them is to stab them and leave them open a little bit, and in 2 days they're wonderful. They had a little crunch in the front, the marshmallow on the inside. Way to go. All right, what else do we have here? I think we're good. I have a few dozen of these eggs that people have made for me. Some are engraved. I couldn't find them, but they're here. Now look who came to join us today. Our good friend, the Easter Bunny. You might remember him from the video of last Easter when there was no way that we could even be together. So let's count our blessings. We are people finally having a resurrection. Now also you notice we have wine. We spoke about it. We cooked with it again. Beef broth will be fine, not for the drinking so much as for the cooking. But I wanted to discuss wine with you for a second. Sometimes people can't finish a bottle, so that means that you want to keep it. If you get one of these little stoppers, you can buy them in a liquor store, and you put it down, people stand it up like this. No, this does not give any liquid out. Lay it down because it's about the oxygen getting in. So make sure that they're head down, and it'll keep for a few days. Nothing will happen to it if you keep it corked, okay? And if not, if you wait long enough, you have a nice vinaigrette. Now, let's look at the food for a second. We have our orecchiette. You see how they look like little face masks? We have our grated cheese, which you've seen us do that before. We have the meat. Again, you can see if it were bigger chunks, they would be more discernible. This happened to be small ones. It doesn't matter. I pulled some of them out of the sauce so that it was more like a sauce and not like a stew. So you could see the consistency there, all right? So we have that. And I also made a little something extra. I know there's sausage in here, but I wanted to introduce you to this. This is Laganaga sausage. It's sweet. It's small enough to have a little piece of it with this, and you don't feel like you're being overwhelmed. You might want to, I grilled it, and it comes very nice, so you might enjoy that. So what else would you serve with this meal? Certainly the appetizer salad that came from the other cooking show would work very well with this. The crab would be good. I would make some type of a leafy vegetable with that. If you're going to have the salad we proposed with the radicchio, then give something green. And you could make a roast, but this could suffice as well. It's really up to you and what your people want to do. There's 3 things, though, I would think about. It's color, taste, and texture. So you would not want anything red here. You wouldn't want to cook beets because there's too much red. You probably would want to stay away from anything with tomatoes in it since you've had plenty. And for dessert, I would do something a little lighter. We had a cheesecake with the salmon because the contrast is good. The cheesecake's heavy, the salmon is light, or the fish. So for something like this, probably just a very light type of a dessert, something like a pound cake, a little ice cream, nothing to drag you down. Cookies, lovely. All right, so we hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank Father Nico. He was so helpful today and good. And I don't know, maybe we'll see you again. You have Happy Easter from all of us, from me, Father Nico, Father Matt, our 2 parish communities that are joined for this special time. And we also want to thank you for joining us. And if you've enjoyed what you have, if you tried it at home, let us know. Feedback is always welcomed. We say to you, a very blessed Easter.